I want to bring to you today an understanding about when you allow yourself to become so discouraged and you come down with almost a temptation for a deep depression. And you look around you and you don't see any more hope. Perhaps you've served God for years and years and you've loved Him all those years. But because you see how happy and proud the evil people that do evil are, you think, what's the use? What's the use of serving God? Now, I'm not saying all of you do this, but I'm talking about the temptation to do this. I'm not even talking about doing this, because you see, temptation is not a sin. It only becomes a sin when you do it. When you entertain it, you could be tempted to fall down and say, what's the use? I don't care anymore. And you can lay there seemingly for a little bit of time, and then the Lord will lift you up and He'll cause you to realize there's every reason to go on. It's not true that nothing is happening, that God isn't moving for you, that you will never see daylight, that you will never see the fulfillment of what God has promised you. Well, when you get to the place, if you read Malachi 3, there's a part in there that talks about, and I won't tell you the actual which verse it is, but it is a part of there that he talks about the Jewish people when they got to a place where they felt, what's the use of serving God? It's it's useless. And how God thought about it, and what that did when people even now get to the place where they say, oh, what's the use of going on? No matter where you turn, no matter what you do, it seems like the enemy has all the power. It seems like no matter what happens, they don't seem to run out of having anything. I mean, there are so many things that will tempt you and try to discourage you and tell you there's just no sense in believing God. There's just no way. He's never going to move. He's never going to, and I think about the silent majority had got that way. I used to hear them all the time when I was younger. And they would say, God's never going to send us anybody that's going to help us. God's never going to do this. God's never going to. What's the use? What's the use of even voting? What's the use? And they didn't realize that according to the Word of God, when you get in that condition, you might as well hand everything on a silver platter over to the enemy. You might as well just say, there's no use in serving God. There's no use in believing Him. There's no use in standing in faith. There's no use in nothing. And you just might as well look up at Him and spit at Him, because that's just about what you're doing. There's always hope, and there's always a way to believe God. There's always things within the Word that'll comfort your heart if you allow it. There's always a new door to be opened, a new way to be reached. Always. Psalms 37 says, fret not thyself because of evildoers while they prosper in their way. Because God has every intention of cutting them down. God has every intention as somebody who is willfully and deliberately doing evil to hurt other people. He has the intention to stop them. Now, it's not up to us to sit there and wait. Oh, I can't wait till they get this, and I can't wait till that happens. As a prophet, there's many times that the Lord would show me and reveal to me what was going to happen when people were insisting upon doing evil. You take a good look at Romans 1, and nobody, and I'm telling you, nobody that I had ever heard of in all the years did I see them ever preach the truth about Romans 1, about the fact that all of those sins that are are there, are sins that so much of the flesh does. And all they ever looked at is, and they did the same thing in Paul the Apostle's day. All they looked at is the horrible sin of men with men and women with women, and how evil these people were, and they deserved to die. They are worthy of death. And they didn't realize that in the same sentence of saying, being filled with all unrighteousness, covenant breakers, you debate, disobedience to parents, all of these things, murder, all of these things have a comma in between them, meaning that all of these sins are as equal as the other two sins. And all sin is worthy of death. All sin, not some sins, but this one's worse than the other one. All sin can be forgiven. All sin can be so forgiven that they can be led back to God. Because as long as there is breath in the body and life of a person, there is an opportunity and a chance for them to be delivered and healed. So it's a chance for life. But you don't hear that. Okay, you don't hear those things. Oh, you hear how they take the Bible out of context and mess it up in a sense where they can say, well, once saved, always saved, that you can do anything after that. They take it so completely out of context, and they make the Bible what they want it to be, because they forget it's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. It's a fearful thing when you tramp on the blood and count it of no effect, that you don't want any parts of it and you're going to do your own thing. It's a fearful thing for you to be so froward, meaning willful, that you decide what you're going to do. And even when you suffer for it, you refuse to believe that that's the reason why you're going through anything. That when you decide that, well, I'm not going to listen to my parents, I'm not going to honor them, they don't deserve it, they don't this, they don't that, and because of this, I have a right. You know, the only right that you have is to choose God. You see, He gives you a free moral agency. And in that free moral agency, He gives you a freedom to choose right or wrong, to choose what you're going to do with your life. And those choices have consequences. Whether you believe they do or not, whether you say they do or not, has nothing to do with it. For God will not change His word for you or anybody. So He put it in Romans chapter 2, verse 1, that those that believe that certain sins are worthy of death, just certain, the two kinds, those two are worthy of death. They don't count the other ones that they're living with every day. They're gossiping, they're lying, they're cheating, they're doing all of these, all unrighteous things. They're covenant breakers. They decide that they are going to break a covenant with God. They made a commitment, but they now can break it because they found out that it's okay to sin. And this is a covenant breaker. And it's the worst covenant you could have that you could break is the promise you made to God that you were going to live for Him, that you were going to follow after the Spirit. And the only way that you are free is if you follow after the Spirit and not after the flesh. But that's not what they do. They take it out of context, twist it up, and make it sound the way they want it. And He said that you were inexcusable because you not only do the same things, but you have pleasure in them that do them. So where in the world did He say they do the same things? And I've preached on it many times, that because people think that they are men or they are a man of God, there's certain things God's never going to look upon, and they're going to be allowed to do that which is against nature. They're going to be allowed to say and do things that are completely against God's natural laws. And and they think they're going to get away with it. What good does it do them? Ask yourself a question. What good does it do you to have your body, your mind, or anything to be healed if you're still going to go back into the same thing? What good does it do you to do those things? The only hope you have is Jesus Christ. There is no other hope there is. There is, when you come to a place, like he said, what would a man give to save his own life? When you get to a place where it's either life or death, you get to that place you have to make a decision. You either choose God or you don't choose God. That day is promised in the New Testament in Revelation, that it's going to come for many of you, that you're going to have to decide. You either lose your head and or deny Jesus Christ the way they want you to. Because you see, loving Jesus Christ and following Jesus Christ, the world, the flesh, and the devil hate it, because it is a reminder that where they're going as long as they're sinning. And you don't want to be on that side. You don't want to be doing that. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And this is where sometimes people think, oh, I preach such a harsh message. And I do. Because you need to reverence the presence of God rather than play with it, rather than take it for granted that everything's fine. You're going to live your life continually doing whatever you want and claim God as though that's going to make everything all right. What comes out of your mouth in claiming him doesn't mean a thing to God. It's the life you live here and here towards him. I told you before that if you love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and your neighbor as yourself, and you love, when I say love God, you love Jesus Christ, the Son of God. When God the Father looks down from heaven, he doesn't see you anymore. He sees the blood applied to your soul. So when you take your garment and you get it dirty, he doesn't see the blood anymore. He sees you. And when you dare to take your form of godliness, which is not God, and you pray before him, you dare to pray before him against people who love God. You dare to pray against the truth, against righteousness. You dare to work that way. When you dare to do that, what you do when you call upon God is you tempt him. I'm telling you true. You literally tempt him. That's one of the things Jesus said. Don't tempt him. When the enemy told him to jump off of whatever and jump, that the promise is the angels will bear you up, and so you can jump. And Jesus' answer was to him, don't tempt the Lord thy God. Because when you jump off of that cliff that says it's okay to sin, it's okay now. I've got permission by God to do whatever I want. And because I've got saved. And once I'm saved, I'm always saved. It'll never change. It'll never turn. So you go before God in your prayers. And you know what happens to God? God goes, oh, he can't bear the sin of what you've done. And he spit you out of his mouth. He will literally, like that, he will. Because he said, I'd rather have you hot or cold. If you're cold, you know you're a sinner and you won't go to him. If you're hot, you'll do everything within your power to please him and love on him. But if you're lukewarm, you'll lie and you will say, once I'm saved, I'm always saved. I can do anything I want. God will always, always forgive me. No, the scripture doesn't say that. The scripture says that as long as you walk after the flesh, there is no condemnation. After the spirit, excuse me. As long as you walk after the spirit, there is no more condemnation. Because those that walk after the spirit, they're not walking after the flesh. But if you walk after the flesh, guess what? There's condemnation there. It's not conviction anymore. It's condemnation because you have blasphemed him. You have said that it's okay to do evil. He even tells you in those same chapters in Romans, he tells you that there are people that say, let us do evil that good may come. Okay, these people that covet and steal and do and help others to do these things, they are saying, let us do evil that good may come for these people, because these people, they're owed. These people, they went through so much. They're just never ever considering the fact that every one of us have an opportunity and a choice to change our own lives. Every one of us face adversities, face persecution, face even slavery, face being treated like a dog by other people. We go through those things, but we never, as Christians, reach out our hand and say, what you have is mine now. And I want to pass a law to be able to shoot any one of you to stop you and destroy you because your ancestors did this and your ancestor did that. Well, you know what? I don't have anything to do with my ancestors did because I don't live like they did. Somebody asked me, they said, well, what are you? Are you black, part black? Are you white? What are you? Well, my father was Hispanic. He was born in Texas. My mother was pure Polish. She was born in Poland, in Auschwitz. So that makes me who I am. I look like my mother, and I don't look like my father at all. So when I went down into Mexico as a Hispanic, they said, "Come and see the white lady that the white Mexican that preaches." Well, they weren't saying exactly true because I'm half. And I often wondered, why did people hate me because I was Hispanic? And oh, they hated me all right. And because my family was a certain religion, which I wasn't, but because they hated my guts with a passion. And they all prayed against me and worked against me and hated me for those reasons. I could never understand it because I couldn't look at a certain person from any country and hate them. I couldn't look at anybody for the color of their skin and hate them. I saw the beauty of the Lord in every one of them, no matter what color they had. There's some, oh my goodness, the most beautiful babies and children and if you have a love of children, I'm telling you, when I went into Mexico to preach, the persecution of the drug cartels is, you would see mansions and haciendas, and right next to it you would see the poorest of poor living without anything. And when I went there, we went and saw mountains of garbage, mountains. And they claimed and said that the preachers that went there, when the people started climbing down to have prayer from the mountains of garbage, when the pastors came into their presence, they threw up right there because the smell was so bad. I couldn't smell a thing. I looked at the most beautiful people in the world. I looked at the people who were richer than you are and richer than me because they were coming out of a mountain of garbage with nothing. And there they were, standing in a circle, blessing and praising the Lord. I couldn't keep my hands off of them. I couldn't stop hugging them and holding them. I couldn't do it because I smelled nothing. I only saw a child of God. What is the matter with people that they look according to these eyes and listen according to the ears, and they follow the propaganda and lies of other people? Everybody that has even a little bit of common sense knows that you don't believe everything you read. You don't believe everything you hear. And even worse yet, you don't believe when they actually come out with videos and they prove videos showed the truth. And then they had Hollywood edit them. And then they put that out as truth. And you listen to that. And you think that God is with you. Don't you see what you support and who you are? You must support that which is right. You don't support, you don't say, well, this man is a good man because he served in a service and he did this. And so we know he's a good. No, you don't. You don't know if God called him to this nation or not. You know that God calls a person to the nation when you have things that were done that were right and good for this nation. And I think that's already been proven, where the borders were closed up to protect us, so the drug cartels couldn't come in and invade us, so that human trafficking couldn't happen with people that didn't, you can't even prove who they were, you can't even find their mothers and fathers. Doing that with children, opening up the floodgates in order for that to be done, that's more evil than what was done in this country before that. And you do those things and you make those choices without full knowledge and understanding of what you're doing. I'm not here. And one woman said, God is not a Democrat or a Republican. Neither am I. I want no parts. I told the Republican Party, I don't want any parts of you. I know how evil some of the stuff you've done. I go by what God tells me will be done in this nation. And God tells me that the laws of this nation has to come where the Bible will be used to guide it. That has to come back. And people who lie for their own careers and they want to say, I'll do this and I'll do that. You got to go with the proof of what was already done. A lot of those things were already done and stopped because the persecution and the hatred came from people that wanted to make sure that a person who because of you think and we're told about their personality, you hate them. Something is wrong with your thinking. Now you can go and you can shut me off. I don't care what you do. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what God revealed to me. The same God that healed me and delivered me and told me, don't go here, don't do this. The same God that took me off my deathbed is the same God that spoke to me about this nation. And he told me what's coming. And he told me that if people do not get to a place where they weigh the weightier matters. Now, you can take one or two and work it out, one or two people that are having problems with as far as babies go, and you could use that and spread that everywhere. One person over here gets raped, spread it everywhere. And then you can use that as to catapult people's, oh, look what they're doing. You don't know the rest of the story. What about the millions of innocent that were killed? What about the millions of innocents that have been raped? What about the minds that were raped, even in the colleges, by taking minds and telling them that there's an alternative lifestyle, teaching them that your parents are liars and no good? What about those things? What about those things that they proved, the rape in those colleges? What about those things? What in the world are you thinking? You expect a leader of a country to be a pastor? You're dead wrong, because a leader of a country cannot be a pastor and do the things that he has to do when it comes to everybody. Because you see, he's not just leader over this group or that group. He's a leader over them all. He's got to be a leader over all of them. And he's got to do righteous for all of them. He's got to weigh the situation. He can't be personal about it. He can't sit down and say, well, my father was this way and my dad was this way, so something is wrong with your thinking. And you children of God that get so discouraged because it seems like there's nothing, there's so much that the devil can do to destroy your life. And you are listening to what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears, which means you're not listening to God. Because in God, he is the God of the impossible. Now, I don't worry and preach that I hate this one. I don't worry and preach that I love this one. Because I'll give this one the truth whether he likes it or not, and I've done it. I don't care who you are, I tell them. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care if you're King Farouk. And when it comes to your soul, I'm going to tell you the truth. So if you think I haven't done that, you'd be dead wrong. I've done that with people that before you ever even saw one video, I did it with others and I got results. They listened to me with the most famous people, the most powerful people, the most rich people, where I stood right up to them and said, hey, I don't care what you look like. I don't care what your personality is. Are you doing what is right according to this nation? Are you doing what is right? It is not politics as usual. That's why God chose someone who wasn't a politician, because politics is corrupt. It started in the church, political correctness. Oh, we can't say that. If we say that, I'll lose all of my followers. If we say that, I'll lose all of my parishioners. If we say that, well, I will lose my place to be able to preach. Well, if we say that, I'll lose my 501c, giving them the power to get their money back. You haven't given God nothing when you have a way to get it back. You've given him not one little penny. But you lie that you do. I don't know who these messages are for. God knows. I don't know what you think or what you feel. And frankly, telling you the truth, I don't care. You don't rule my life. I don't need you to tell me how wonderful I am. I don't need you to tell me that I'm on the right track. I don't need you to encourage me. I don't need you to strengthen me. I don't need your money. God does that every single day with me. He strengthens me. He encourages me. He brought me to this place. He will pull me further. If I have to reach 1,000,000 people to see them climb out of what Satan has taught them and told them, if I have to reach them, God will catapult me to where I need to go. I'm not concerned about that. I'm not concerned about how many people I have. I do not let that ever touch me. I'm concerned about your soul. I'm concerned about, I was on the phone today for 2 hours with a woman that had some serious, serious problems, which is what I deal with all the time. But I will stay with that woman or any man, because I also had an 18-year-old. I will stay with them as long as it will take before they leave my presence, because I don't know what will happen out there. Before they leave my life, I want them to have the fullness of the truth, and I give it to them. I want them to have the fullest chance they have to follow God, and I will pray with them. I do that with every single soul. Once you come to me, I make sure I get to you, even if I can't. I will. I have people who have commented on some of my videos 10 months ago, and I go back into them and I answer them, because some of them, there's prayer requests in there. And I'm sorry that I'm late doing it, but I started this probably about 3 weeks before my daughter passed away. This is when I started doing this. So then I went through all of that, and I got a little bit behind on comments, mainly because I didn't understand how YouTube worked. I didn't understand that they put a lot of the comments, because I was getting thousands of them. They put a lot of those thousands of comments in another place, and I didn't know they were there. So I've been trying to catch up to them. I work on catching up on my Gmails, on every situation that anybody writes to me. I work on that. I work on the telephone calls. I'm one person. I don't have an assistant, and even if I had one, they would never be able to give you what the Lord has me give to you, because they don't know it. They're learning just like you're learning. So I do the best I can with what I have. I don't have somebody flooding me with money and giving me this because, I've heard preachers say, well, they come and they give me all these clothing and somebody says to me, don't you like color? You always wear gray. I wear what I've got. I wear what I have. I wear what I like. I don't care. I love to see color on other people. I do. I think they look beautiful. I love color. Oh, God made color too. Everybody has to correct you somehow. Everybody has to take a look and pick you apart. There's a lot to pick apart when you look at me, because there's nothing here that could possibly cause you to look at me physically. Nothing. That is so important, because my image of how I physically look means nothing. What means something is what I got here and here that I give out to you. And I give it to you on a silver platter. I give it to you with everything I've got. I give it to you striving night and day, and sometimes I can't get to a video. But yet you'll say, where are you? Do you know how bad that hurts because I couldn't get to you? Do you know how bad it hurts when I see a Gmail sitting there and I haven't been able to get it for 2 days because I have this to do and I have that to do? Do you know how bad that hurts? It hurts. Oh, I pray for you, but it hurts because I can't help somebody that needs it. That hurts. And yet people will pick on me. People will find fault with me. People will use the word to say, she says, I. Don't listen. What is the matter with you? Are you insane? Don't you see? There's only one thing that I want to do, and that's lead you to Jesus Christ. It took me 2 hours to get somebody to understand how to hear God's voice, to listen to Jesus Christ. And yet, are you praying? Are you praying that I reach them? Not for me. They need reached. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this at all. I have all my victories. All the testimonies that you hear are from years ago. I have not had an attack from the devil or Satan for, 35 years? Because he can't touch me. Maybe even more. He can't touch me. The only time I deal with those things is when somebody else needs help and they don't understand. Because usually it's not even a demon or a devil. Usually it's their lack of understanding and their lack of knowledge of God, because there's nobody out there teaching it. You know what they're teaching? They're teaching their own agenda. They're teaching their own truths. They're teaching their own doctrines. They're teaching their own teachers. But they're not teaching you how to walk and talk with God, how to be with God and be safe. They're not teaching you that. They're teaching you, do you know that you can murder someone and God will still accept you? It's okay. It's going to be all right. Because once saved, always saved. Well, do you know, this is what they teach. Do you know that Jesus was married after all of these years? We found out that no, you didn't. You took the Bible out of context, twisted it up to suit your doctrine. That's what you did with it. That's the truth. You took everything out of context and you sat down and you took advantage of poor women who are suffering and having troubles, and you come in, I'm a man and I know you need me. You need a man over you. You know what? If you can't see, that goes against the word. Something is wrong with you. If you follow that kind of preaching and teaching, something is wrong with you. Because if you can't see that he's no respecter of persons, therefore he is not going to call a man over a woman. He is no respecter. He doesn't, when it comes to the gifts of God, he doesn't see the difference between a man or a woman. He doesn't look at gender. He looks at the heart that is willing to serve him. That's what he looks at. But they just lift up man like he's just everything. He just, oh man, there's nobody's going to get above him. Did God give them wisdom? Did God give them the ability to reach you and help you? Is that what God did? Did he do that all these years? They had all these studies. They had all of these ways. Is that what he did? I'm not here to reprimand any of you. I'm not here because I look down on you. You know what I see when I look at you? I see myself. I see myself, and I had no hope. I had nowhere to go. I had no one to turn to. And God came into my life and changed me the way I'm giving it to you. I'm teaching you how He did it for me so you could have what I have. And yet you'll still pick out, well, you must not like color. Well, you must do this, and you don't understand. You should obey the Bible like this. You should. Something wrong with your head. That's all I have to say. Something wrong with your thinking. And when I tell you there's something wrong with your thinking, go before God and ask God to forgive you for picking on somebody that the Bible says, leave her alone. She is doing a good work, and she's doing it in the name of Jesus Christ. Let her help people that can't find help anywhere else. Leave her alone.